Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here this morning. We really appreciate it. It's wonderful to see everyone. We will begin the program now, but please continue to serve yourselves coffee, and we've got a lot of food over there in the corner, but we would appreciate it if you would turn your cell phones to silent mode. My name is Becky Mowbray, and I serve as BGR's President and CEO. I am pleased to welcome you to BGR's very first breakfast briefing of this year, sponsored by First Horizon Bank, whose generous support allows BGR to hold these events and make them free to the public. I also want to extend our gratitude to WWNO New Orleans Public Radio, which will rebroadcast this event on Tuesday, February 18th at both 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. We hope that you will take advantage of the question and answer portion of today's program. It's easy to participate. Just follow the instructions at your seats to access the online Q&A form. The QR code will also be shown on the screen during the Q&A period as well. And if you prefer to write your question, please hand it to a BGR staff member and include your name if you'd like to be identified. Following the program, please share your feedback about this event. But St. Tammany has continued to grow its economy in the 2 decades since Hurricane Katrina. With more businesses and jobs available today, fewer residents need to make the daily commute to work in other parishes. This internal growth is transforming St. Tammany once again. The new census designation arguably puts St. Tammany on its own center stage, creating both opportunities and obligations to plan for growth and economic change. Our discussion today will dive into what this new designation means, what opportunities have arisen because of it, and how parish officials can manage the growth and modernize government for this new era. Here today to delve deeper into this topic are St. Tammany Parish President Michael B. Cooper. President Cooper is a lifelong resident of Covington, a community that he has been proud to serve in many different capacities within parish government. During his tenure as parish president, he has led St. Tammany through a global pandemic, record-breaking hurricanes, and a 500-plus year flooding event. He began his second term in January. Also with us is Dr. Robert Habans. Robbie is an applied economist and social scientist with the Blanco Public Policy Center at the University of Louisiana, Lafayette. He recently authored an article for the Data Center on the separation of St. Tammany and New Orleans metro areas as defined by the federal government. And our third panelist is Christopher Masingill. Chris has served as the CEO of St. Tammany Corp since July of 2018. His many accomplishments include implementing Thrive 2023, the parish's first economic strategic plan. During his tenure, St. Tammany Corp has announced multiple major business recruitment and expansion projects representing over $291.9 million in capital and more than 2,200 new and retained jobs. To provide more time for this important conversation, we've placed speaker bios on each of your seats if you'd like to read more about our panelists. So Robbie will start us off this morning by explaining the census change and its causes. He will also share other insight on economic trends in St. Tammany. Afterward, I will moderate a discussion among the three panelists. And in addition to our curated list of questions, I'm sure there will be many questions from the audience throughout the discussion. To submit a question, again, scan the QR code on the screen or the printed instructions. It'll take you to the online form at bgr.org/QA where you can type in your question. Please include your name if you want to be identified. And I need to say the views expressed in this program are those of our speakers. Please join me in welcoming Parish President Michael Cooper, Robbie Habans, and Chris Masingill. Thank you. And we're so glad to be back in St. Tammany.
Can everybody hear me? All right, great. So as Becky mentioned, I recently moved to the Blanco Policy Center at UL Lafayette, but this piece actually dates back to my last job, which was chief economist at the data center in New Orleans. So I'm mostly going to be talking about this piece that I wrote a few months ago. The URL's right there. It's datacenterresearch.org. You're welcome to check it out if you want to look at more, because I'm going to run through some details really quick here. So my main job is to set the table for the discussion. This is the topic. It is St. Tammany Parish, now officially called Slidell-Mandeville-Covington, in the way that this data is set up, is a new metropolitan statistical area. Previously, it had been part of the New Orleans metropolitan area, but it's been split apart and made into its own. Just like I'm showing here, it's now the 5th largest in the state of Louisiana and the 184th largest in the United States in terms of population. So what does that mean? Don't worry, I'm going to walk through the details. For most of us in the room, I think it mainly serves as an occasion to discuss some of the underlying trends that led to this change. So I'll be walking us through some data, so just bear with me. I'll do my best to keep it focused on the important stuff. If you take away anything from my portion of the program, it's simply this. It's an invitation to reflect on where St. Tammany has been, where it's going, and where it fits within its neighboring areas. Okay, so what is a metropolitan statistical area? If you hear somebody like me talking about a regional economy or a metro, or making comparisons between like Phoenix and Milwaukee and Miami, we're usually using these things called metropolitan statistical areas, or MSAs. It's just a grouping of counties and parishes that are designated by the federal government, mainly for statistical purposes. That's the official definition right there: an area containing a large population nucleus or urban area and adjacent communities that have a high degree of integration with that nucleus. So unlike counties or parishes or municipalities, MSAs are not political entities. Rather, they're meant to capture the nebulous notion of an urbanized region. And that means cities, suburbs, small towns that are close to each other and very related. I'm an economist. I like to think in terms of markets. These are places that have shared and integrated housing markets, labor markets, supplier and product markets for businesses, markets for traffic on the highways, and so on and so forth. The issue is markets have fuzzy boundaries, right? You can't take 2 steps to the left and you're in a different housing market. So we need a consistent way to define them all across the country. And that's really the purpose that these MSAs serve. Okay, if it's helpful, I kind of like this analogy. If we think about the United States as like a galaxy of stars, MSAs are like the solar systems within that galaxy. So it's just a place where there's sort of like a shared center of gravity, right? The little bit of history on the New Orleans MSA. It was first designated in 1950, Orleans Parish, Jefferson Parish, and St. Bernard Parish. St. Tammany was added to that in 1963. Causeway Bridge, right? That's the reason right there. 50 years go by, New Orleans metropolitan area, including St. Tammany, grows to an 8-parish MSA. And then as of 2023, with the new data, St. Tammany's been split off and there's now 2 MSAs. New Orleans is a 7-parish metropolitan area, now under 1 million population. And St. Tammany Parish is now officially a new metropolitan statistical area. So I'm going to walk through sort of like why it's happening. This is, I've got it framed up as a recipe for what goes into an MSA. First 2 things are parish boundaries and urban areas. So this little map just kind of introduces that. You can see the parishes. I've got the New Orleans MSA and St. Tammany highlighted on there. You can also see like Baton Rouge, Hammond, Tomah, Thibodeau. Those are the other urban areas. But focus on the whole South Shore, right? It's one giant urban area from Plaquemines through Orleans and Jefferson into the river parishes. St. Tammany is actually 2 different urban areas, Slidell area and Mandeville-Covington area. And because these are completely separate from the South Shore, it's not automatically included in the same MSA, okay? It's eligible to be an outlying county, and that's exactly what it was until last year, or 2 years ago. And then the other piece of the puzzle is commuting patterns. And this is really the thing that's changed. So the magic number here is 25%. If more than 25% of the workers of a county commute into the central part of another MSA, which in this case would be, and used to be, South Shore urban area around New Orleans, then that is considered an outlying county in that MSA. So this is exactly what's changed. In the last time they did the major update, St. Tammany was a little bit above 25%, and now it's a little bit below. That's really the only thing that's changed. That's the one line takeaway for why this is happening. But why, okay, so commuting patterns, okay. What are really the underlying factors here? And I don't think that any of this is going to be too big of a surprise to anybody in the room. But just to focus on population trends, since the 1980s, most of the population growth in the New Orleans metro area has actually occurred within St. Tammany Parish. St. Tammany had a population of 64,000 in 1970, and as of data from 2023, it was 276,000. So that's very strong growth. In contrast, New Orleans has been losing population. Jefferson has actually had flat population or decline since the 2000s as well. Now switching to employment, very similar. Again, we see St. Tammany, the purple line, kind of going on a linear upslope. In 1990, Orleans and Jefferson accounted for over 80% of employment in that 8-parish metropolitan area that included St. Tammany. As of 2023, the share had fallen to 70%. Meanwhile, St. Tammany's share of that area grew from 6% to 18%. Its number of jobs increased from 34,000 to 95,000. So jobs actually growing more quickly than population. And then if we combine those two numbers, I like to take the ratio of jobs in the parish to the population of the parish. And we see that the number is actually increased. It's the only part of the region that's increased in the number of jobs per residence. And I think it's important to note that this number, there's actually fewer jobs per resident in St. Tammany Parish than there are in Orleans, Jefferson, and a few other parishes in the New Orleans metro. However, the growth here, if you just think about it logically, it's gone from 232 jobs per 1,000 residents to 346 jobs per 1,000 residents. It's just more likely that people who live in St. Tammany are going to be able to find a job within St. Tammany, and I think that that's kind of part of why we see those commuting numbers. Okay, so why should we care? What does it all mean? I want to stress that MSAs are not political jurisdictions. Unlike some federal government data, there's no federal money that's tied to this really. They're really mostly used for research purposes. Yet I think that they have an important purpose. In my opinion, I think probably we'll get into it in the discussion. Regions are actually quite important. And because we don't generally have a governance structure for regions in the United States, they're really dependent on the stories that we tell about regions. And part of the way we tell those stories is the way I do it, using data. I think we'll get into more stories about the St. Tammany region in the discussion. But I think that that's the main thing, is just to think about what does it mean for St. Tammany to be a region. I like to say that, there's a lot of local problems that I think we all care about: economic development, housing, transportation, environmental management, disaster resiliency. These local problems are actually regional problems, if you think about it. Another way to think about regions, the regions are really the building blocks of the United States economy in a certain sense. The top 50 regions account for nearly 2/3 of the gross domestic product of the United States. Incidentally, as a result of this shift, neither New Orleans nor St. Tammany Parish is within the top 50 metropolitan areas in the United States any longer. So what does that sort of mean for St. Tammany Parish to be no longer an outlying community within larger mid-size metropolitan region, and is instead really a small mid-size metropolitan region by itself? I think people in economic development naturally understand this, whether you're focused on, in a regional economic development perspective, a parish, a city, a neighborhood. A lot of what they do is in some way about activating the regional economy to serve their constituents. Okay, and then just along that theme with sort of the importance of the stories that we tell about regions, I'll just leave you with a couple. This one's about jobs in St. Tammany Parish. I know there's a lot going on with this chart. Basically, if you're above the line, these are St. Tammany's strong industries. And if you are to the right of the line, on the right side of the chart, these are growing areas. I picked 2014 for a reason. If you look at the state as a whole, Louisiana basically has added no jobs since 2014. So the good news here is that St. Tammany has a lot on the right side of this chart, and because it's growing, right? And that's not the case in most of the state of Louisiana. However, if we look at the strong industries in St. Tammany on the top side, we see things like retail, food services, construction, healthcare. What do these industries have in common? They're industries where the demand is really led by the local population. So if somebody like me looks at a chart like this, I'm thinking that a lot of St. Tammany's economic strengths, at least in terms of this measure, a lot of its growth has come from its population growth. Whereas if we think about the sort of like classical economic sense of what is a region, it's really those economic engines, those driver regions that drive the local economy and that create population growth. So, you know, we have had sort of the opposite of that happening in St. Tammany Parish. What does that mean for the future? I think St. Tammany's had growth in some of those traded industries that's contributed to these commuting trends. But what does that mean going forward? And then the final one, this comes from a little bit of an experimental research project we had going on at the data center. It's really looked at population responses to flooding in Louisiana. And these are the places where people have moved from parts of Louisiana that have very high flood risk. And you can see there's a lot of places highlighted. Sometimes, you know, people in coastal areas move up the bayou, for example, but a lot of people move to St. Tammany Parish. So that's just historically. We know that a lot of Louisiana has major problems with flooding. I think St. Tammany has some problems with flooding. But if there is more population movement in the future due to the environmental risks that exist in our state, is that going to come to St. Tammany Parish? Is it going to look different? A lot of St. Tammany's Parish growth in some senses come from other parts of Louisiana. So I think it's just worth thinking about that as we think about the future. And yeah, I'll kind of leave it at that. I think we'll look forward into talking a little bit more about regions. Thank you.
Thanks, Robbie. That was great to tee off the discussion this morning. I think, why don't we open with a very general question for President Cooper and Chris. So you just heard Robbie's presentation. Speaking generally, what opportunities and responsibilities or obligations do you see as a result of this census change?
Well, first let me say, welcome to the greater St. Tammany metropolitan area.
Right.
We indeed see challenges with growth and development. As I've said many times, growth and development is outpacing the infrastructure that we're able to provide. We continue to invest in road, bridge, drainage infrastructure, water and sewer infrastructure to meet those needs, as well as planning initiatives to address how we're going to grow in the future. We recognize how we've been growing. I noted that in 1970, our population was 65,000 people. I was here in 1970, and I remember when our parish was at that stage, but now we're over 275,000. And we're going to continue to grow, and we're going to have to continue to make these important investments.
Chris?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, everybody. Two things real quickly before I dive in. One, I want to say thank you for taking the time out of your schedules. Am I supposed to hold this? Thank you, Mr. President. Okay, that's okay. Well, again, thank you very much for taking part in this discussion. BGR does a phenomenal job with their information. Thanks for coming back to the North Shore. I also want to say thank you to the presence of our elected officials here in this discussion this morning, from our state reps who do an amazing job for us in Baton Rouge, to the local parish council who is in the thick of these issues that we're going to talk about today. This is stuff that we are living every day. These are some amazing opportunities and challenges that the parish president and the council are dealing with. And I'll tell you that somebody that responsibility is to help create opportunities, bringing these things to the forefront is something that we work on every day. I also want to say thank you real quickly as we dive into our commissioners that support economic development. I've got my president of our board, Joan Kaufman. Mimi Dossett is one of our commissioners. I think I saw Ross Lagarde, who's another member of ours. Thank you all very much for your support of economic development. I'm going to piggyback a little bit real quickly, and Becky, you just stopped me as we want to transition, because I think the president made a very important point. The other thing that I would stress to you from my perspective is that St. Tammany Parish is absolutely a driver of the state's economy. I mean, the reality is that just in the 6.5 years that we have instituted a whole new perspective of economic development. When I got here, our GDP was 12.3, 12.4 billion. We're now over 15 billion. We know just in the last 5 years, we've grown the size of the city of Slidell alone. We also know that we have a transition in our economy, quite frankly, that we've been seeing for the last 7 to 10 years that Robbie will point out to you. The reality is that the opportunity for major business investment is still on the horizon. And address these critical issues that have been pain points for the people of St. Tammany for a long time. Because with that increased opportunity in business investment, it actually accelerates the opportunity to address a lot of these issues because of what we know happens when businesses come in. We lower the tax burden on the residents of St. Tammany, which is right now, the residents of St. Tammany, the households are really shepherding that cost. And we need to equal that out even more. We also know that it creates major opportunities to address some of these significant issues as it relates to infrastructure and transportation and drainage on top of the, quite frankly, the historic investment in infrastructure that this administration has put forth. We are seeing record investment in transportation, in drainage, in core areas of the parish that will help us years to come. Part of the issue and the challenges that these people deal with is that we're playing catch up. The reality is that though we have to continue to attack this with a balanced approach. We can't turn off the spigot because the reality is that St. Tammany Parish is in a driver's seat to create more economic opportunities, not only for the state, but for our people. We are in the driver's seat to be able to do that, and we're seeing that in multiple traded clusters. When we got here, one of the things that we saw that popped out is that you're right, housing construction was leading the economy in St. Tammany Parish. But we're also seeing a diversification of that economy in a significant way. So challenges also equal opportunity, and we're in the driver's seat to do that. And I'm very fortunate to have the opportunity to be in this place, in this moment, working with these leaders at the local level, because it has not been lost on them the challenge that they have to balance that every day.
Chris, why don't you hang on to the microphone for one more sec? So tell us about what industries are driving St. Tammany's growth, and with St. Tammany gaining more attention for its economic growth, what types of new investment are you working to bring to the parish through St. Tammany Corp?
Yeah, thank you, Becky, for that. When we kicked off Thrive 2023, which was the first major economic development strategic plan on the North Shore, one of the exercises was to do that analysis, to do the deep dive, because we had never done that. In fact, it was amazing, and it's still amazing how much that we learned when we peeled that onion back about what drives our economy, what makes up the jobs in St. Tammany Parish. What does that look like? What is the economic landscape for that? And yes, we saw where construction was a significant part, particularly tied to the housing industry and the supply chain that supported that. But the other reality that we saw is that we saw a tremendous opportunity in professional services, business and technical services. You know, when you look at companies like Empirical, when you look at companies like CDIT in Slidell, when you look at the new company, like, for example, an announcement that we made last year, Hirschberg and Scott, that's actually in manufacturing. They're building the bearings for every major naval submarine on the planet. And they are doing that in Slidell, Louisiana. These are jobs that are 100,000 and up. When we started down this road, you know, the reality was that our average wage was much lower. Well, the average wage now is much higher. It's in the mid-50s. That's a significant indication of what, one, the expectation is, right? I mean, every job has value. We don't place judgment on the types of jobs. But the reality is that every job has value. But we want to go after those high demand, high salary jobs, because they're also usually tied to other types of industries, particularly in technology. We've seen that. The kind of advanced manufacturing that is involved with what H&S is doing is significant. Let me give you one more that we're tapping into. The other one is on the supply chain, because supply chains, logistics, transportation was another major industry cluster for us that we identified that had tremendous potential because the infrastructure that was in place. When you look at the infrastructure that's tied to how we can advance that industry, we have it, both in workforce, both in the infrastructure, the hard infrastructure, the assets that support the supply chain industry, AWG, et cetera. But now there's been a major advancement in the technology of that, particularly in cold storage. We recently announced a project called Agile. It's going to be 100 jobs, 195 jobs. When you look at the indirect jobs, it's going to be associated with that. Those jobs also start in the mid to high 50s as a starting point. That's over $5 million infusion in payroll into St. Tammany Parish. And that has broke us into a new industry sector within the supply chain that we are positioned to really capture. One, our strategic position on the I-12 corridor. That is a major benefit for St. Tammany Parish in being able to track major economic development projects. And probably the second and most important is that we have a talented, skilled, and educated workforce. We have one of the highest educated workforces in the entire Gulf Coast region, not just in Louisiana. And we also have the numbers to support that in St. Tammany Parish. And I think as we transition, the other thing that I'll reinforce that Robbie had actually mentioned, when I first got here, people told me all the time, hey, there's a couple things you need to learn. First of all, we want to blow up the twin span and put a gate on the causeway, and we want it to roll about 4:30. We're going to raise the causeway. We're done. Okay, I respect that. I understand that. But the reality is that that's not how the world is working. And we have an opportunity to capture some amazing continued investments because those investments actually enhance and strengthen the quality of life that is a hallmark for St. Tammany Parish, which makes this place one of the greatest places in the South to live. It just absolutely also happens that the South is the one gaining all the major business investments over the last 10 years in every major category of economic development. The South is what is growing. And so we have an opportunity to really be in line to actually see some of those advancements in major areas. Business and technical services, professional services, supply chain, logistic distribution, and advanced manufacturing.
So, President Cooper, how is the parish planning for growth as Chris talks about all of these economic development projects that are underway? What do you see as the critical steps to effectively balancing economic growth with its impacts on roads, drainage, and other infrastructure, not to mention residents' quality of life?
Well, again, we continue to invest in infrastructure. Our planning initiatives, two particular planning initiatives, include a parish-wide multimodal transportation plan so that we can identify corridors that are currently unopened that in the future will provide east-west traffic flow that we currently do not have other than Highway 190, I-12, and Highway 36 in the northern part of the parish. We also have undergoing at this time a parish-wide comprehensive drainage plan so that we can determine the drainage effects across the parish and how development will be affected by their new types of development. Two parish-wide plans that will help us determine how best to develop in the future and grow in the future.
Thank you. And President Cooper, what have been the effects of St. Tammany's population and business growth on the parish budget and the effective delivery of public services? And do you see ways in which local government within St. Tammany Parish should modernize or reorganize to more efficiently and effectively serve its larger population?
Second question first.
Okay.
We're always striving to streamline our processes, to streamline our local government, to provide services in a more effective way. The first question.
The first question, what have been the effects of St. Tammany's population and business growth on the parish budget and the effective delivery of
As we continue to grow new homes and new residential development is an important aspect for St. Tammany Parish. Business development, that all provides new revenue for St. Tammany Parish. That revenue is then in turn put back into growth and
you want to try the microphone again?
is put back into infrastructure projects to handle the growth in the new development in St. Tammany.
Okay. And following up on the first part of that question, where do you see, like, can you be more specific about the areas where you see opportunities to reorganize or modernize? Like, where do you think the best opportunities for that lie?
Or the UDC, you check the UDC.
Well, the UDC, the Unified Development Code, was a rewrite of our codes for development and growth in building. That was in process when I took office, but in the last 4 years, many people in here joined forces to provide ideas to have better codes, better policies, and to streamline the processes for permitting, for residential permitting, for development. And as I said, we continue to seek ways of streamlining our systems and policies.
Okay. Thank you. Can everybody hear out there? Okay, just making sure. All right. Okay, so Robbie and Chris, let's talk about the broader North Shore region. What connections are you seeing develop between St. Tammany and Tangipahoa and Washington parishes, as well as Livingston and St. Helena to the west? What opportunities exist for greater cooperation and planning?
Okay, well, I'll probably defer to Chris on the details here, but I'll just share a little bit of what the data says. So, like I said, there's a lot of Louisiana that's not growing. St. Tammany and the Hammond metropolitan statistical area, which is just Tangipahoa Parish, are kind of the exceptions to that. So, I think 2000 to 2013, 2020 to 2023, St. Tammany grew by 4% and Hammond grew by 3%. Lafayette was 1.5%, and basically everywhere else in the state was either no growth or a little bit of decline. So there's something seems to be going right in terms of the economy and these two parishes. Also, if you're just looking at population change, a lot of the growth within St. Tammany has been on the western edge. It kind of butts right up against Tangipahoa Parish. So if you're just looking at commuting patterns, they're not the same MSA right now. I wonder if that will change if development continues to go the way it goes, 10 years from now or 20 years from now, but I guess we'll just see. So that's what the data says, but I'll kind of leave it to you.
Well, you're right, and I think in a practical matter, one of the things that we realized when we kicked off our strategic plan is that the connectivity that we have, both in strategy, both in opportunity, and the workforce connection. The reality is that Tangipahoa and Washington parishes have significant assets for us that we can leverage as we're attracting economic development projects. Economic development projects do not see city limit signs. They do not see parish boundaries. They look at regions. They look at communities in corridors that they know they can have the opportunity to grow or the opportunity to come and take advantage of what that synergy is creating for their business. And when you look at Southeast Louisiana, particularly the North Shore, there's an opportunity there to really increase that collaboration. In fact, we've seen that firsthand. St. Tammany Economic Development Corporation actually just finished an EDA project that we worked on for the last several years in the 5 Florida parishes, working on capacity building, technical assistance, and small business. They saw where we, as the economic development organization on the North Shore that actually had staff, subject matter expertise, resources, we could really collaborate with our partners to increase capacity for the ability to go after economic development projects and to help existing businesses. Now, I want to be very poignant in terms of stressing the existing business piece. The reality is that we saw enormous opportunities with existing businesses that wanted to continue to make investments, but were having challenges to do that because of the current landscape, either because of needing to navigate the bureaucracy, finding ways to work with the parish governments at various levels to work through those issues, to do site selection, to work with our local businesses. You'll be surprised. In fact, the number of projects, quite frankly, that we've been working on still involve existing businesses and industries wanting to make investments in their people, but they're trying to make a decision. Can I continue to be successful here with the business climate, with the regulatory climate, with the landscape? And these are serious decisions that businesses are making. And we saw that if the connectivity between the other parishes. We also are able to work with other parishes in capturing projects. When a project does not fit in St. Tammany, we can work collectively to make sure that that project stays in the region, and we've done that. We've done that on multiple occasions. For whatever reason, we have put things in place. We have relationships now that we work collectively as a North Shore region to either go after businesses, or if we're working a project and for whatever reason it doesn't fit in St. Tammany Parish first, then I want to make sure that we're working collectively not to lose that project out of the region. We want that investment here. We want those employees here. We want the taxes here. We want the quality of life here that's supported by business investment. And so we see that as enormous opportunities to continue to do that. Let's take Washington Parish, for example. Washington Parish has a lot of natural resources. That is a major competitive advantage when we're working certain types of projects. We can leverage that. Businesses can be here, they can tap into those resources, or vice versa. As we've seen a decline in the housing development in St. Tammany Parish, and we have, permits are on the decline as it relates to housing because of a lot of different reasons, and we can probably get into some of that here. But the reality is that they can go 5 minutes to the west or to the north, make these projects a reality, and then we can still have the opportunity to put the businesses here, or vice versa. The businesses can be in Tangipahoa, and we can get, our people can have an opportunity to do that. We know that in some cases, our folks will drive 90 miles one way for a job. Now, that's not the majority, but the reality is that is certainly the case in some of our industry sectors. We know that when we started this exercise with the first Thrive 2023, there was over 30,000 people that came in to really support our economy in St. Tammany Parish. Well, when you start diving into that, why is 32,000 people having to come in here? Well, there's a few reasons. One, they can't afford to live here. There's no housing. There's no workforce housing. And as we've tried to address some of the infrastructure issues, as we've tried to put policies in place to tamper that neighborhood development, housing development, until we can get a handle on a few things, it has absolutely had an impact. And as a result of that, those neighborhoods are being built in our parish next door to us. And we know that Washington Parish has a strategy. They're trying to work with developers like, hey, just come drive north 5 minutes, build it here, and you can still drive into St. Tammany. Because here's the reality as well, and Robbie, you may touch on this. Those people in those parishes are actually driving into St. Tammany for their services, for their groceries, for their jobs, and in some cases, their kids are going to school here. Now, the thing that we have to be careful about is that Tangipahoa, when they get their education system, and they're on the heels of making some major advancements in their education system, when they get that right, we need to be on the lookout, because they're going to be nipping at our heels, and they already are. The good thing is that we have a collaborative fashion, and we work well across the board in all types of projects. But we cannot take our eye off the ball. If we want to maintain the level of quality of life that we have in St. Tammany Parish, that requires investment, both from the public sector and the private sector, to continue the quality of life and the advancement that we want in St. Tammany Parish.
President Cooper, let's see. Let's talk about think about the relationship with the parishes on the South Shore. Is St. Tammany's greater economic independence changing in any significant ways how the parish cooperates or partners with its neighboring parishes on the South Shore?
Well, as Chris alluded to, we can't rely just on St. Tammany Parish. We are our neighbors on the North Shore as well as the South Shore. As development goes and as successes are on the South Shore, that provides success to St. Tammany Parish as well. As they go, we go. We're benefiting from people who move here, but we need to be prepared for that. But we are certainly cooperating through the Regional Planning Commission. 7 parishes along Lake Pontchartrain and St. Tammany Parish and Tangipahoa Parish belong to the Regional Planning Commission. And together, we work together for the benefit of our region.
Okay, terrific. I am going to transition to audience questions. We've had a number of good ones. Feel free to keep submitting them if there's something that you'd like to ask. Let's see, go down to, okay, a number of questions that have come in are about wages and cost of living. I will say these are for anybody who would like to answer these. Is the job growth happening in St. Tammany high-paying jobs, or is it mostly lower wage opportunities? And when you consider this, is there affordable housing for lower wage earners?
I'll kick us off. I think a couple of things to keep in perspective. One, our economy is made up of about 5 or 6 major sectors, okay? St. Tammany Parish has had a historical landmark because retail follows rooftops. And we've had obviously major growth in that, and so retail has driven our economy for a long time. But the reality is that over the last 7 years, there's been a major economic shift. St. Tammany's economy has been in a major transition. It's not just supported by retail and hospitality. Yes, it's still a major part of our economy. In fact, the last time I was looking at these numbers, about 14% of our economy still comes as it relates to retail and hospitality. That's important. Those jobs are typically lower wage jobs. Important because we're known for our hospitality, we're known for our culture and food, and actually people are surprised when they look at the tourism dollars of the people who are coming here for tourism-related activities, because they want to come here, they want to stay here, go over to the city, do day trips, but then they want to spend that time over here on the North Shore to take advantage of that. That's actually a positive. That adds a great deal to our tax base. The other component that I would tell you is that we are seeing a significant positive increase in the types of jobs that are coming to St. Tammany Parish, and those jobs are associated with higher pay. When you also look at the other category of our economy, let's take healthcare. Healthcare supports over 26,000 employees in St. Tammany Parish. It's over $1.5 billion to our GDP. And when you add Washington and Tangipahoa parishes, that actually increases a great deal, which is why you see, if you follow St. Tammany Corporation, we're doing a lot of work around supporting our healthcare economy. One, these jobs are fabulous jobs, they're well-paying jobs, and we know they're high-demand jobs. I heard Pete November actually just in one of our healthcare symposiums, they've got over 4,000 open positions right now. Joan Kaufman can tell you she's probably got positions open right now, from actually bedside to those individuals that are supporting everything from HVAC to folks that are doing every role inside healthcare. These are major opportunities for us to provide an incredible quality of life for our families. Yes, do we have issues with affordable and available housing? Yes, it's no surprise to us. In fact, with the administration's support and this council, they have stepped up. In fact, Councilwoman Kathy Seiden, who's the chair of the council's economic development working group, put forth wanting to really tackle this issue as it relates to understanding what are we dealing with. The administration has stepped up to say, look, we're going to fund a major housing analysis. This is the first time that has ever been done in St. Tammany Parish. We are now taking a collaborative approach to look at one of the most important issues facing this parish. Because business and industry are going, if my people cannot live here, or they have to drive over 45 minutes to an hour, that's not good for us, because it creates other issues like childcare. Early ed and education is another major issue for business and industry across the board, across the United States, and certainly no exception here in Louisiana. But on the housing piece, this is going to be so enlightening and informative to us because this plan that the administration is funding and the council has put forward is going to give us some real clear direction. Product type, the need, what's the projections look like, what is this issue? We have a lot of anecdotal information about these issues. We have a lot of folks here, Bubba's here from the North Shore Home Builders Association. He can speak to this issue better than any of us. The reality is that we're going to have to put forth some very intentional strategies, policies. We're going to have to put forth some collaborations to really address this issue because it is one of those issues that will drive not only where continued business investment is being made, but what the future of those business investments look like for the entire North Shore, not just St. Tammany. But this is something, and I'm real proud of that. I'm really proud that the administration is supporting that study. I'm proud of the leadership of the council, recognizing that we're going to have to come together. We're going to have to really understand the facts, because the other thing in St. Tammany, you all know this better than I do. We're a community that's not afraid to express our opinion about development. We're not afraid to recognize, hey, there's that dude with economic development. Let's tackle him in the grocery store. We don't like him. But the reality is that we also have a mindset in St. Tammany Parish. We're not afraid of challenges. And we're not afraid to step forward and to put some positive recommendations on the table that will benefit the future generations of St. Tammians because they don't have to leave. They can stay right here and have incredible occupations and incredible quality of life. And we can do that in a collaborative fashion. And we're seeing that play out between the administration and the Parish Council. And I just want to say thank you for doing that on behalf of economic development.
President Cooper, we also wanted to put the question directly to you. Do you think we have a housing crisis brewing in St. Tammany? And what's the plan?
So, as Chris mentioned, we do have a crisis for workforce housing. We have a crisis for moderate-priced homes. And we've been meeting with the local home builders group that has stressed the need that they want to help solve the crisis. Of course, we have zoning issues. We have, is property zoned correctly? Are there wetlands? Where should development continue, whether it be workforce housing or any type of development? Where should development move to? We know that properties along the I-12 corridor, we know properties along our major state highways are pretty much developed. So where do we go from here? Where do we move where there's infrastructure? Where do we move where utilities are going to be available? Where the zoning will be accepted for higher density residential development, whether it be single family development or multi-family development that's affordable, where the needs of filling positions at the hospitals, in our schools, in our retail businesses, where will that come from? The housing study will assist us, but also the zoning, reviewing our zoning plan, our land use plans to determine where growth can take place that we can provide the needs of residential, particularly workforce housing.
Another terrific audience question. How will St. Tammany continue to attract younger families to keep the economy vibrant and prevent what has happened in Jefferson, where an aging population and housing stock have led to stagnation in some areas?
Becky, say the first part of that again for me.
How will St. Tammany continue to attract younger families to keep the economy vibrant and prevent what has happened in Jefferson, where an aging population and housing stock have led to stagnation in some area?
Got it. Thank you. A couple of things come to mind on that. One is I think there is a recognition that we have to understand the population is getting older. Okay, we're seeing 10,000 individuals a week hit the retirement age. We also saw in the last 5 years the biggest segment of movement within the demographic group is those 65 and over. That's certainly been the case for St. Tammany as well. The St. Tammany population is aging. It has been the fastest growing segment of the population, particularly when you go 50 and over. The other component, though, is that the average age, Robbie, correct me here, I believe the last time I saw it was 36 or 40 was the average age in St. Tammany Parish. We also know that families move to St. Tammany Parish when they want to start a family. And we can still support that. And we're seeing that. We're seeing that in the numbers. We're seeing that in that they can still come over here and have an amazing quality of life, access to education opportunities. They can feel safe. We know that these are certain values in St. Tammany and on the North Shore that we put a high price on, and that we value that a great deal. And we are seeing that. We're seeing actually families come back to the North Shore to work in St. Tammany Parish. We still have about 40% of our workforce are in some type of remote hybrid space. That seems to be the case nationally as well. In talking to some of our research analysts, that has certainly been the case here, and that gives people opportunity as well. I think with the jobs that we have targeted in our economic development strategic plan, those 4 major industry sectors give us some significant opportunities. But we also hear all the time, hey, when we're going to get another family entertainment type of business? I think I saw Mike Soche. Mike Soche, did I see him? He and I have this conversation on a regular basis. He's always saying, look, people are always saying they're asking our businesses to help with that. We still need opportunities in the family entertainment space. We certainly have places for that to take place. We've got great opportunities in terms of land availability to do that. Just because you have land, though, does not mean you have a site, because that gets into a whole other conversation about site development, and we can go down that road a later date. But I do think that we are, Becky, I think we are attracting the type of investments. Let's just take Empirical, for example, another amazing St. Tammany company. When they bought the company out of Texas and they moved those employees here, they've got over 400 employees in St. Tammany Parish. High wage, high demand job. That company touches the electric grid all over the United States from right here in St. Tammany Parish. An amazing company. They relocated families to St. Tammany Parish. These are incredible jobs, and we're seeing more of that. And we have to make sure that we continue to provide that quality of life and the balance. And I want to also stress this point again, because I see our folks from the assessor's office. The burden, the tax burden that is on the households of St. Tammany Parish is some of the highest as it relates to ratio than anywhere in the state. Over 70%, or maybe it's 80. Is it 80 now? Is it 80? Between 70 and 80% of the tax burden in St. Tammany Parish is on the households. A good, thriving, diversified economy, you at least need to do 50-50. And that's what we're going to continue to strive to do in economic development, is to create more opportunities to attract and to help our businesses grow so they can share in that tax burden for the people of St. Tammany.
I just want to reinforce the fact that people move here, young families move here because our communities are safe, because we have our school systems, public and private school systems, and because of our quality health care. Those are 3 particular reasons, not only the jobs that are being provided, but the quality of life we provide for those 3 reasons.
That's a great segue into Councilmember Smith's question that he just handed me. Can you talk about the impact of low crime rates for growth and development and the ability to attract new businesses? And we'll throw that open to anybody.
Thanks for asking that question for me, Councilman. Just as I said, we pride ourselves on our law enforcement, our sheriff's office, our municipal police departments. Our criminal justice system is second to none, and we want to continue to do such. People move here because they feel safe. People move here because of the quality of schools and, again, the quality of health care that we provide. We're going to continue to do and continue to provide the improvements that we need to attract young families here, to attract grandparents here who are moving here to be with their grandkids. We're going to continue to do what we can to keep the quality of life here. And each and every one of you in this room can help us do that.
So vote yes on the rededication for those that are in St. Tammany. Let me just say that on behalf of the council. We want you to vote yes on the rededication. Very, very important to maintain that level of public safety. And absolutely, Councilman, we've had this discussion as it relates to business and industry. If you can't feel safe with your investment, you're never going to come here. And here's the other thing about economic development dynamics. And I see Councilman Corbin, who comes from the business world. We have this conversation all the time. Businesses now are more mobile than they ever have been in the history of our economy. And they can literally redirect investments. And that's like in economic development, one of the things that we do, we have something called BR&E, right? That's our business expansion and retention efforts. And it's really just a fancy way of, we do a lot of business health checks. We work with our local business and industry. We're constantly talking to them. But part of the reason that we stay so connected to them is that we're looking for red flags, right? We're looking for, okay, have they started disinvestment? Are they still operating, but they haven't invested into their infrastructure in the last 5 years? Or they're making major shifts in investment in other places that would normally come here. When we see those kinds of signs, that is a communication that, hey, the C-suite level, they're making decisions that no longer include St. Tammany Parish. And those are warning signs. And a lot of things contribute to that. And certainly, if a community cannot support that business, if they go in with human capital, with the talent, and then obviously the protection of their property, those things do matter.
Okay. I'm afraid that's all the time we have for questions. I wish we had more. Thank you, Parish President Cooper, Robbie, and Chris for speaking with us today. We really appreciate it. We'd also like to say thank you again to First Horizon Bank for its generous sponsorship of this breakfast briefing and the others that will occur this year in New Orleans. We plan a series about population and the legacy of Hurricane Katrina for most of our events this year. We'd also like to thank Hornbeck Offshore Services for hosting us this morning, and we'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to be with us. We really appreciate it. Please remember to complete your survey. It helps us plan these. You can use the QR code to take the survey on your phone or fill out the paper survey form at your seat and give it to a staff member. A recording of today's BGR breakfast briefing will be available on our website, bgr.org, and it will also be rebroadcast on WWNO New Orleans Public Radio on Tuesday, February 18th at 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. We hope this event has been informative and that we'll see you again at future BGR events. Watch for a new round of research reports in the coming months. Follow us on social media. Consider supporting our work and have a great day. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to keep you boys here for some photos.
Oh, okay.
Before you run on.